And welcome back to the Engage 8 podcast. Here in the new year in 2023, we're joined by Logan Berner again. Logan, say what's up.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Have a good break from school. Have a good New Year's, good Christmas.
Yeah, it's all been really good, going by a little fast, but yeah, it's been a super good holiday. How's yours been?
Pretty good. Was in Florida for a while, hence why I haven't uploaded a podcast episode. I did try to do a little bit of things, but I realized that if I were to upload something, it was going to be really bad quality and not be executed very well. So I just decided, well, I'll just wait till I get back and be able to react to these college football playoff games, since that's probably going to be the hot topic, which is what we're discussing today.
Sounds good.
All right. One thing before we get anything going. So yesterday, the All-State Sugar Bowl happened between Kansas State and Alabama. Bryce Young and Will Anderson both played, which are both probably going to be top 5 picks in this upcoming NFL draft. And now the discussion on Twitters and other social medias is, oh, well, Alabama should be in the college football playoff. If you look at these teams that are in, like TCU and Michigan and Ohio State, Alabama's better than all of them. They should have been in the college football playoff. I hate that. I hate that reasoning because, one, Alabama lost its the two best rate to their. I'm sorry, I'm not putting this the greatest way. Alabama lost its 2 best games, and their best win is a Texas team that TCU beat, or Ole Miss, who lost like the last 3 out of 4 games or something like that. They lost their bowl game. They lost to Mississippi State. I'm pretty sure they lost the game. They lost to LSU too. Like they weren't that good of a team this year, anyways. So I just hate the reasoning that, like, oh, they played one good bowl game after a month of preparation, basically, and they're other guys being all healthy. So I don't know. It just bugs me. I don't like that reasoning. They were given a schedule. They didn't play to their full potential at times, and you can't just say, well, they could be that good, but they could also get rolled. I just hate that way of thinking.
Yeah, honestly, I've obviously been reading a lot about this on Twitter and stuff too. I think it's 2 different questions here, and I think they both have 2 different answers too, which is the interesting thing. The first one is Alabama good enough to be in the college football playoff? I think yes. Personally, I think Alabama might have beaten any 4 of those teams, given Nick Saban a month to prepare. Alabama probably the 5th best team in the country, in the rankings at least. I think they would have had a shot against any of those teams. Personally, I think they beat both Michigan and TCU. Georgia, I'll go back and forth on that one. But so yeah, I think Alabama definitely was good enough to get in. But I think the better question is, did they deserve to get in? And that answer is no.
Yeah, I mean,
you said, you
nope.
can't lose to Tennessee and LSU and expect to get in without making your conference championship.
Well,
so
it wouldn't even matter if they got another big, like if they got to win against Georgia or got to win against USC or some other big top 10 team, but they don't have that to show on the resume. Like the thing with Ohio State, why I argued Ohio State over Alabama is Ohio State beat Notre Dame, who was pretty good at the end of the year, especially, and also they beat Penn State too, which is a top 10 team, obviously, that we're going to see tomorrow in the Rose Bowl. Freaking go crazy with the big red dog, Sean Clifford. So, and hopefully his last game. I don't know. I really want to.
It's gotta be.
I want to see. I want to see Drew Aller out there, man. I think he could be something special. But no, I mean, everyone knows Alabama has the talent. That is not a question. The problem is they didn't execute their talent to the best of their abilities this year, and that's why they didn't make it. Like the committee's job, they have a criteria, and Alabama didn't completely fit that. It's about the games you play, not about what you could potentially do against these teams in a matchup. I completely agree. If you give Nick Saban a month to prepare against Ohio State or TCU or even Michigan, obviously they're probably going to win just because that they're more talented, they get better recruits, they get guys in the portal, they do all these things, but that's not how football works all the time. You don't wait a month to play each game because that would just be really boring. So actually, now that I think about that, if the Big Ten played one week, the Big 12 played another, well, that wouldn't be too bad. I could watch each and every individual team, but then I would forget about stuff. Anyways, okay, so we're going to be starting off with the game that happened first, college football playoff semifinal at the Verbo Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. TCU ended up beating Michigan 51-45 as the final score. Logan, what are your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I had a couple here. Very very interesting game, I will say. It was super back and forth. TCU kind of came out and they set the tone from day one. And Jim Harbaugh's teams have been really really good coming into that, making adjustments out of the locker room. And I think you can probably agree they did another good job of making adjustments out of the locker room. Um, the difference was this time they buried themselves into a hole and they were playing a TCU team that, unlike the Ohio State team they had seen a couple weeks earlier, weren't just going to roll over for them. So, a lot of credit to Max Duggan. He was able to really keep that offense in there and ended up turning into a shootout, which was weird because we really did not see that in the first half. But Michigan just couldn't make enough adjustments to be able to make up for a really, really sloppy first half. Those two J.J. McCarthy pick sixes, I think, ended up being really killer. And TCU deserved to win that game.
Yeah, I mean TCU played the better football game all around. I
100%.
I made a tweet earlier before, like during like the first 2 minutes of the game. I said the players to watch out for on the TCU defense were D. Winters, Hodges Tomlinson, and Josh Newton. And two of those kids, Newton didn't have too much of an impact in that game. I mean, he was still pretty decent in coverage, but the thing is, TCU got beat over the middle with their safeties. They run a bunch of zone coverages just because they play their 3-5 stack or whatever, and it worked. I mean, it stopped the run game at times. There was some plays where they hit like that first play by Donovan Edwards, but after that they weren't doing anything too crazy. And Tomlinson was really good in coverage. He had that one pass interference deep down the field that was really bad. I think it was Cornelius Johnson when it was in double coverage and whatever. And then obviously D. Winters just had the game of his life. I mean, if you were every single play, he was either in the backfield, in coverage, making plays, just at being a menace out there. There's one play where he got JJ backed up in his own end zone and forced a throw out, and Michigan, like, he was a big disruptor. There was other guys obviously on the TCU front that were, were trying to get guys like D. Winters and other linebackers into the backfield, making plays in the run game, which they were able to do more consistently than I thought leading into the game. But I just think Michigan wasn't able to play a complete football game, and it hurt them because they're not playing in the Big Ten where they don't need to play a complete football game. And we saw against Illinois, Maryland, even Ohio State, like, you can't just be this one half team. Like, you got to play a full football game. In the first half, they looked really miserable.
Yeah, I think the weirdest thing, well, the most unfortunate thing for Michigan looking back on that game is they did play a pretty good football game, I would say, for the most part.
They played a really good second half.
They did. And ultimately, the problem ended up being for Michigan, they played well 95% of that game. It was just those 5% where, like, some really unfortunate things happened. I think it set the tone on the fourth and goal where the offense decided to go for it from, I believe it was the 2.
Yeah, it was the 2, and they ran that little Philly special
double reverse
and Loveland, and it ended up not working out at all because
Josh
Newton made a play, and he sniffed it out, and he played coverage on that, which was really good. And that's why
absolutely.
TCU got the stop.
Great defense out of TCU, but I don't know. I've always been a really big proponent, especially early in the games, taking your points. Yeah. They didn't do that there. And then I don't – maybe you got a better take on it than me, but I don't know why the double reverse on fourth and goal from the 2 was the play call. Why get fancy? You got the number 1 offensive line in the country. Just go try to pound it.
Yeah. And, I mean, it ended up not working out later anyways when they're on the 1 after the Roman Wilson touchdown got called back. And I hate it because people are like, oh, that should have been called a touchdown. It's like the only reason why you're mad about it is because they didn't execute at the 1-yard line, which is something they done with Blake Corum all year. Like, just pounding it in with, like, when I was making that highlight video, I literally just so much touchdowns inside the 5. It's like, I don't want to put that in a freaking highlight video reel. I need actually big plays. But like, you can't fumble that. Like, that literally cost you the game if you add that 6 or 7 points, because I'm assuming they would make the PAT. Like, that is your winning play right there. That is the difference between you winning and you losing, because they gambled way too early, and, like, it was really bad. I don't know why, because, like, they haven't been like that all year. They never gambled. They were calm, consistent, played to their true tendencies, and then they go out and throw the ball 35 times for no reason. Like, JJ has not done that all year. it's just, and it obviously showed because, I mean, I don't know if you how much Michigan football you've watched, but like JJ McCarthy hasn't
Decent
had to
amount.
made reads all year. He's either
No, he
seen a
hasn't.
wide open guy downfield, and I mean, he's got the arm talent to deliver it down there. It doesn't really matter how accurate it is when you have 10 yards of separation. And then he's only had to hit guys like Ronnie Bell and Schoonmaker over the middle all season. Like, seriously, it's all digs, a little 5 yard in, slants, all these things, drag routes. Like, that's all he's thrown all year. They haven't really played too much outside the numbers in the receiving game. Everything's up the middle, whether it's a run or pass play. And they didn't stick to their identity. And they luckily, we're playing a TCU team that if this was Georgia, this game, it would be like the Georgia game last year. Not to discredit TCU, but Georgia's defense can shut things down way quicker than TCU. TCU just has better playmakers on the outside, and then the linebacking crew, they just don't have the linemen.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention that, Donovan Edwards didn't even get a carry inside the 5 yard line. For whatever reason, that Michigan coaching staff just doesn't trust him inside the goal line or whatever it is.
Yeah, but
so when you're without Blake Corum,
they still put Khalil. I think hopefully I'm saying this right. Khalil Mullins inside the 5, and he ended up fumbling anyways. So
yeah,
I don't know why.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, Donovan Edwards is a strong, great athlete. I don't know why you're not putting him inside the 5 anyways. But I mean, you could still run it up the middle with JJ anyways. Like if you really,
that's what I was just about to say. You're at the 1 yard line. All you got to do is fall, and you're basically in.
I mean, you had 4 downs to do it too. It's not like it was a 4th and goal. Like I don't know. I knew after that. I want to call it the Wolverine not special.
That was a brutal play call.
Yeah, I knew as soon as that happened, like
that.
Michigan's gonna try some stuff that they haven't done all freaking year, and it's not. I mean, it worked. It worked at sometimes. Like Ronnie Bell and Roman Wilson were able to make plays in this game down the field. Like that's not Michigan. I mean, they did it against Ohio State, but that's just because Ohio State's pass coverage was horrendous at that time, and I mean, it still wasn't good yesterday. But I mean,
well, I think it's kind of important to just say like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the brand of football Michigan's played all season in the first 13 games was this really boring style of football, and like sometimes Michigan games suck to watch because you knew they were just going to hand it off. And you knew they were going to let J.J. McCarthy just complete his little 3 yard slant passes, and it was going to be an easy system. And then all of a sudden they get to TCU, a team that had really succeeded down the stretch in not playing boring football and letting Max Duggan go out and play and letting their defense be a Big 12 defense, let them suck, but just go ahead and make the turnovers when you have to make them. And it seems like Michigan, as that game progressed, well, I guess from the double reverse call, kind of got sucked into that, yeah, no, we're going to play this fun, new school style of football, which I really wish Michigan from the opening jump would have just stuck to who they were, pound the ball, and kind of slow the game down, because as soon as you got into a shootout, I feel like you kind of had to know TCU was going to win that game.
Yeah, and I mean, Michigan, like that's the problem. They kept trying to play, catch up, and played it too early on, where TCU was able to jump out to a 21-3 lead. Like Michigan's never faced that all season. So
no, their biggest lead coming into that game was 7, or biggest deficit coming into that game was 7.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Dylan Horton. I didn't realize he had 4 sacks yesterday. I didn't look at the stat lines until about like 10 minutes before this. I really hate looking at stats sometimes because they can be misleading. So I like using my eyes way more than relying on a box score to tell me how the game went.
Yeah, it was a really impressive showing, I think, from TCU. I think just their ability to come out, they were the more prepared team. They were the better coach team down the stretch. And, Max Duggan, he's special, and heck of a story for him. Not even supposed to be the starting quarterback at TCU this year. Kind of found himself in that role and led them to 12-1. And I know a lot of people were questioning them coming out of Kansas State. And then especially, I think, seeing Kansas State get rolled by Bama like we talked about earlier.
But I don't know. It's different when you have a month to prepare. And, I mean, if Alabama doesn't play, I mean, I think Kansas State also wasn't expecting Bryce Young and Will Anderson to probably play in that game. And I haven't seen Bama play like that like really all season, to be honest. Like I thought they played their best game yesterday.
I agree. I think the really cool thing that we saw was, the narrative the past really ever since these conference championships have been kind of teams talking like, well, do these NFL teams go get a quarterback because this quarterback class is kind of weak? And then you saw the presumed number one and number two quarterback in C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young both go out and have their best games of the season, in my opinion, which was really cool to see. I know we'll get to Ohio State, but different level of football was played yesterday.
Only if we saw Will Levis against in the Music City Bowl. That game was awful yesterday. Yeah. I don't know. There's this terrible one play where that Kentucky quarterback, he threw like the worst pick ever and ended up turning into a pick six. That game was, man. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know who Quentin Johnston is. He's probably going to be the number one or two receiver taken off the board. But, I mean, Quentin Johnston, Dermocado, Kendrick Miller is really good early on. It sucks that he got hurt. I'm hoping he's going to play in this national championship game because I hate, people don't realize how good that kid was. Everyone knows, Max Duggan, he was a Heisman finalist, and Quentin Johnston. But, like, Kendrick Miller was, like, sometimes the real MVP of this team at times during the season. So,
yeah, this was definitely the most fun college football playoff I think they've ever had. I mean, there wasn't a blowout, which we've seen every single year in the college football playoff, and Correct. That's kind of a shout out. That's what I think we've been saying all season. Like, hey, Georgia's really good, but Georgia's not this like unbeatable giant that
it was
last year. Yeah, Georgia was basically unbeatable. The only team that was going to do it was Alabama, and I think you kind of knew that with Alabama sitting at home on their couches this year. I think it was a really competitive college football playoff week, and I think that's really good for the sport too.
It's going to continue too because with like quarterbacks like Frank Harris and Tulane's Pittman, Michael Penix, like all these guys are going to stay because they don't want to go be 5th or 4th round picks and try to take their chances. There's NIL value in these quarterbacks from the schools because they play so well and like they're leading them to success, where it's going to cause like way more parity and way more competitiveness. There's also the transfer portal too. Like I was just scrolling through before the show. Like there's so many like big guys at big schools that are just going down to like, less of a major, like more of a group of 5 conference or something like that. Like there is just going to be so much more parity because you can't just win off recruiting now. There's so much other factor. You can't win off a straight up your championship tradition or like your program tradition and whoever's your head coach. You got so much more factors now that you have to put in to getting these recruits. And it's going to cause more parity, which I'm all for it. I like a competitive league. I don't like, a team being dominated. Like, for example, the NBA with the Warriors. Like, I hated that. I hated watching that when I was a bigger basketball fan. Like, no one wants to watch that. Everyone wants to see everyone have a chance, unless you're a fan of that team, of course.
Yeah, I think that's a big takeaway, and that portal's big because you get all these kids that, they shoot for the stars, go to the Bamas, the Georgias, and then realize you're not playing, and all of a sudden schools like a TCU that maybe isn't getting these big-name recruits to come, well, now they are. They're just getting them a couple years later after they've spent a couple years in Nick Saban's program not playing.
Right.
So,
like, I know Trayshawn Holden, one of the receivers, he got some playing time this year. He's going to Oregon, and JoJo Earl, he's going to TCU now. Like there's just a ton of talent out there with guys entering because they're not getting the opportunity and they don't want to just play 1 or 2 years and then go to the NFL. They want to play for a school for the majority of their career. Not like you can't. There's so much time less. Like how do I want to put this? Basically, there's no stacked roster because before you had to sit out a year, obviously, and whatnot, but now that you get the free time, and if you're a grad transfer, you get to just transfer as much as you want. Like you get way more opportunities to prove yourself, and it's better for the kids. It just can suck for the schools that just bought all this time into recruiting them out of high school and stuff just to say, hey, see ya, I'm going somewhere else now. Yeah. Thanks for the NIL money. Like so yeah, all right, let's get into this second game before we more go like transfer portal, coaching, whatever there else is there discussed. Maybe some what your opinions are of how on like prospect rankings coming up in the draft and whatnot. We had this Ohio State Georgia game last night in Atlanta at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Georgia ended up taking the win 42-41. I don't know. I really thought Ohio State was the better team this game. and it's sad to see. And Georgia's one of those teams where they have just so much talent. It really doesn't matter if they play a complete game. Like, they can just come back and still always be in it just because of the talent that they have. I was really surprised to see Adonai Mitchell. He didn't play since week 2, and he ended up catching a touchdown pass. And then Arian Smith had that one huge play as well, where I was just like, dang. That's, I don't know. And then obviously when they drove the field and left Ohio State with a minute before they could go for the field goal, that was ended up being terribly missed. Like, I don't know. I just knew watching this team in the fourth quarter, I'm like, yeah, Georgia's going to do their bullcrap magic that they pulled out against Missouri earlier in the season too. And I mean, this Georgia team's really good. There's so many guys that you can just name that are going to be probably pros or that are superstars, and they were without their top player in Nolan Smith, but also Marvin Harrison got hurt yesterday, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, who really didn't play all season, wasn't in the game as well. And Cade Stover ended up leaving as well and ended up going to like the hospital like 2 miles away, which prayers up for him. But yeah, you also don't have Mayan Williams or Travion Henderson. I was surprised this Ohio State team played so well, but I think this was a true testimony to why C.J. Stroud was a really good quarterback and is probably going to be really good in the NFL.
Yeah, it was. I kind of said going into the game. I know we didn't get to do a podcast, so I didn't say it on here, but I said Ohio State was going to have a really good chance to win this game if they did the exact opposite thing of what they did against Michigan. Ryan Day, for whatever reason, loved to do his run early, run often looks, which, in my opinion, like this team just like wasn't built to do that this year.
Yeah, I'll say this: they were built to do that with Mayan Williams, but he ended up not playing a lot, and then Travion Henderson, obviously. Like, I think they had too much running back issues to continue to keep like running the ball.
Yes.
So. And I mean, they had one of their receivers, Xavier Johnson, being out there the whole entire game, or at like the whole entire second half at running back, basically.
Yeah, it seemed like a really conservative play calling, especially in that Michigan game. I think that kind of highlighted like Ohio State's issues. Like, they didn't really play to their strengths, I think, enough. And coming into that Georgia game, obviously, I think if you're going to highlight one area of concern on this Georgia team, it's probably that Georgia secondary. And it felt like everyone kind of knew there was going to be a mismatch with Marvin Harrison. Ryan Day just had to put in the system to let C.J. Stroud just go air it out, go find his elite receivers, and he did that. And shout out Ryan Day. I think even throughout the loss, this was probably the best game he's coached since taking over, in my opinion.
No, that Clemson 2020 semifinal game, that was the best game that he coached for sure.
Okay, I forgot about that game. I will give you that.
But no.
At least the last 2 years, this is probably the best game Ryan Day has coached.
Right.
Being able to bounce back from that Michigan game, which it really looked like he was playing conservative. He got swallowed into Michigan's boring style of play, which they did not show against TCU. But that's the kind of game Ohio State played. Didn't work. You came into this game today, yesterday, and they played the game that they wanted to play, and it really worked. You let C.J. Stroud be the elite quarterback that he is. You let Marvin Harrison in that receiving group just go out and ball and didn't lean too much on the run. And I think it ended up really working out. And that Ohio State offense yesterday was unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State offense, like, one thing I will say is, like, we never see, like, C.J. Stroud during mainly all the season, like, roll out, like, basically every other play or get open. I mean, most of those tackles off the edge are just like, trying to let C.J. Stroud sit in the pocket, but Georgia was trying to get pressure up the middle with, Jalen Carter and Nasir Stackhouse and other guys that they were putting in as well, considering Jalen Carter was fatigued yesterday or whatever for a lot of the game. Like, Ohio State was game planning to know that they were going to get pressure up the middle, because that's probably one, that's their strength. They really haven't been an edge team all year. And two, the two tackles in Paris Johnson and Dwayne Johnson are they're pro tackles. They're probably going to be gone in the first round in this draft this year. So they knew that the tackles were going to have to ball out and probably do some stuff that they weren't used to, and they knew that Stroud was going to have to make plays outside of the pocket, not just step up all the time, which is what he did a lot throughout the season. And I think it showed in that Michigan game where he barely tried to make any plays outside of the pocket, getting fancy. And I think It helped him, honestly, because, this receiving core obviously is insane for Ohio State. Brian Hartline's probably the best receivers coach in college football right now, and he should be an offensive coordinator or head coach somewhere, for being completely honest. But what I'm saying is that C.J. Stroud basically got to showcase what he's probably going to be able to do in the NFL, doing a lot of play actions under center and, out of the shotgun, rolling out, whatever. But the C.J. Stroud showed me something that I haven't really seen from him in the last 2 years playing at Ohio State, and him just being insane outside of the pocket and making throws on the run, having to buy himself time and everything. And I mean, he started scrambling at the end too. Like when they were getting in a field goal position, he had that huge 27-yard run to get him inside field goal positions. It just sucks that Noah Ruggles probably had like one of the worst kicks I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State did everything. Ohio State's offense did everything for them to win that game. I mean, Ohio State had guys like C.J. Hicks and Ransom, Steel Chambers step up. Steel Chambers had a really big game. Ronnie Hickman, there's guys that stepped up in this game, but it really didn't matter at the end because, I mean, you knew Georgia was going to get points on this Ohio State defense. And, I mean, Georgia's defense looked really vulnerable yesterday, if I'm being completely honest. I think TCU is going to be able, maybe not to move, obviously TCU, well, actually you could say Quentin Johnston's kind of comparable to Marvin Harrison, but obviously they don't have a CJ Stroud. Max Duggan's still a phenomenal quarterback, not trying to discredit him, but he's not, the type of thrower that CJ Stroud is. So, but it sucks for this Georgia team too, because Nolan Smith, he was really good last year. He was really good in the first half of the season before getting hurt in the Tennessee game. And, he was the senior leader of this team. He was probably one of the more experienced guys on this defense. And it just sucked that he got hurt. But I mean, Ringo, I mean, he was looking a little bit funny out there in the beginning, and I wish Marvin Harrison caught that one pass where when Bullard basically put his shoulder into Marvin Harrison's face, and that's
the questionable where a lot of people want to targeting there.
I don't know. I think it's a clean. I don't. He was trying to break up the pass. He wasn't trying to.
I did too.
So
and he didn't lead with his helmet. He led with his shoulder. So right. I think you have to go clean hit there.
Yeah, and I mean, Bullard, he's been a really good player all year, obviously. Most of the secondary on this Georgia team, they haven't really gotten tested, to be fair, because their pressure is so good that their job's not too hard. But, they got tested a little bit, and I think this national championship game is going to be really good. Which we'll probably do a whole professional preview or whatever, probably, I'd say Friday or Saturday, depending on what you're doing, and let's see who else we can get on, but I don't know. I think this national championship game is actually going to be really good between Georgia and TCU, just because what I saw from Ohio State and what they were able to do. I think obviously Georgia's going to make adjustments to play to TCU's weaknesses. Yeah. TCU's weaknesses, because I hope that's what you're doing as a coach. But
Kirby Smart said after the game that this team is not ready to win a national title yet. There was going to have to be adjustments to be made.
Yeah,
so I'm sure he's heading back to the drawing board to realize what went wrong with our defense, because C.J. Stroud absolutely torched them.
Yeah, and Stetson, he even said himself, he's like, Ohio State was the better team. They probably should have won.
Yes.
But, to the testament to that, Georgia was also played. They knew when to play. It's not like Michigan yesterday where it's just oh yeah, let's just not play at the right moments. Georgia always plays in the right moments for whatever reason. They did it against Missouri this year. They had this really bad first half versus Georgia Tech, and then ended up taking care of it just because Georgia Tech was playing with third stringers at that point because Brent Key was out. But yeah, all right, we're gonna take a quick break here, and then we're gonna be back to talk about what else is going on in college football and draft stuff, and maybe a little bit of NFL stuff.
Sounds good.
And welcome back from the break. Here to talk about some transfer portal stuff and, maybe some draft prospect rankings. We'll take a look at an article, maybe look at what we're in comparison to, whether it's CBS Sports or I know there's the Walter, blah, 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 blah. The Walter, I forget what it is. There's some website that I see a lot of mock drafts on and stuff. But anyways, we're going to talk about some of the players that we really like in the portal right now. I'm going to start back up the Transfer Portal a Day series and basically continue that all the way to April when the Transfer Portal is completely dead. So, Logan, you want to start off with your guy? We'll kind of just trade back and forth who we like and if we know anything about him or a lot about them. We'll discuss, what they could do or what we disagree on.
Yeah. My first one that I want to touch on is DJ. I always mess up the last name.
Uyagale.
Ooh, yep, that Clemson to Oregon State. That happened. I believe it was right before Christmas.
Yeah, it was like,
Um,
people, it wasn't official until I'm pretty sure a couple days ago, but like everyone knew where his intentions were to go to Oregon State.
yeah. I think that's a really big one. For the Pac-12. I mean, people forget DJ was a top five or a five-star prospect. Never really panned out at Clemson. I think a change of scenery is going to be really good. You're going into a Pac-12 where, actually, I can't even say that the competition's less than the ACC because it's probably not. But I think a change of scenery is going to be really good for DJ. I think that was a really big one that I wanted to highlight because I think Oregon State. It almost felt like through a lot of the year they were floating in that 20 to 25 range, and it almost felt like they were a quarterback away. And if DJ can be anywhere close to the prospect he was hyped up to be, that could be a team that's potentially top 15 next year. Maybe that's a bold take, but I'm going to say that's a potential top 15 team right there if DJ can play up to his potential. And they could be scary to make some noise in the Pac-12 next year.
Yeah, I mean, Seth asked me a question about how I thought DJ was, and I gave my answer, but anyways, I think, DJ, he's from the West Coast. He's a West Coast kid. His brother committed to Oregon on early signing day. I'm pretty sure he signed there as well. This DJ, I just felt like wasn't meant to be at Clemson. He's not a Clemson quarterback. He was really hyped up, and I mean, he had a really good first game in that COVID year when Trevor Lawrence was out against Notre Dame. He ended up losing. But I just felt like DJ, he wasn't meant to be a Clemson coach. I mean, there's other Clemson coaching staff issues that I addressed really early on in the start of this podcast. And I just think Oregon State was a really good team. And honestly, I mean, Chance Nolan, he's okay, but they were a quarterback away from being a top 10 team, being a Pac-12 championship team this year, in my opinion. I mean, they were able to run the ball really well. If you watch that Oregon game, they literally won because they ran the ball and played defense for the last five possessions, or the last five possessions where they had the ball. So I think DJ is going to be I feel like it's just more of him being comfortable than anything. I think if he's comfortable in a situation, he can be as good as he wants to be. But I just think Clemson, there's just so much pressure with him, and I feel like he was just not meant to be there.
Yeah, I agree. I think, he never really lived up to the hype, and he's going to a Oregon State team where maybe there's not a lot of publicity on him because I know, I mean, let's be honest.
They don't
Oregon
get
State
much
was
natural. They don't get much national coverage
from a team that was ranked for a decent amount of the year too. Like it almost felt like when they first showed up in the rankings, a lot of people were like, "Whoa, who is this team?" And you're like, "Yeah, this is a team that didn't have a lot of losses, and they just didn't really get a lot of recognition. They didn't have the big name prospects. Now they have one. If they can find a way to coach this kid to his potential, Oregon State's going to be really dangerous."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much guys are returning in that Oregon State team, but if they can adopt the same system and get these guys to buy in and play the same way, like they could be one of the Pac-12 teams that steps up once UCLA and USC step out, even though they really haven't been good in the past 5 years anyways. But I mean, it's going to give them an opportunity. And I mean, if they can play more on a national stage, that's also more NIL money that they're going to get, more recruits that they can get if they can get more guys to buy in and get their, I don't know the head coach's name off the top of my head, but they can get more guys to go there. Like that's what you want. That's what you want as a program. Sometimes it's just what it takes. Get guys to, I mean, you're not Alabama, you're not Georgia, you're not this national powerhouse, but if you can have a program for kids to buy into, then you can win games.
For sure.
The first guy I wanted to mention, Tanner Mordecai. He was the backup quarterback for Oklahoma for a really long time. Sonny Dykes left. He transferred to SMU. Sorry, not MSU. Whoa. I wish he transferred to MSU, but he ended up.
I don't think we had to do Peyton Thorne, not Mordecai.
Yeah. He played at SMU this year. He was really productive. If you watch, everyone kind of knew his name once that him and Clayton Tune played against each other. And it was late October, early November, whereas the 70-63 game SMU ended up being, or 77-63 game, SMU ended up beating Houston. And then Luke Fickell, he's going over to Madison, Wisconsin. They bring in Phil Longo from North Carolina to be the offensive coordinator, which is going to be really weird to see. I mean, we saw Drake May in the bowl game, but I mean, we'll see how they do as a team next year as North Carolina and Mac Brown are they going to be. And then Tanner Mordecai, he literally enters the transfer portal, or even before he officially entered the transfer portal. I already saw this tweet. I'm pretty sure it was from Chris Hummer. And it was like, Tanner Mordecai is planning on committing to Wisconsin. And I already knew Nick Evers. He was an Oklahoma quarterback as well. He ended up committing there.
I was just about to say.
Pretty early as well.
He's going to help out Luke Fickell.
Yeah, but Tanner Mordecai, I mean, this kid's is a baller. Like, he could be, if he plays very well at Wisconsin this upcoming season, or this next season, 2023, he's probably going to get drafted. I mean, you're not a 4-star prospect and go to Oklahoma because you're bad. I mean, Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley produced awesome quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, like, Jalen Hurts even, and now Caleb Williams. Like, like he's known for developing quarterbacks a little bit. And I mean, Tanner Mordecai was there for, I'm pretty sure, he was at least there for 2 years. It might have been 3. But I mean, he's still got 2 years of eligibility. So even if he stays his full college eligibility, like, we could see Wisconsin, doing stuff in the Big Ten in 2 years, maybe even next year. I don't know. It's really tough for me to make a prediction on a first-year head coach. But hey, there's a first-year head coach in the college football playoff and national championship now. So,
well, I'm gonna say Wisconsin's gonna be in the thick of things strictly off of how bad the Big Ten West is.
I don't know. Are they still doing divisions next year?
One more year, yeah, because UCLA and Oregon don't come in until the year after. So with the current system staying how it is for next year, I think Wisconsin's going to throw themselves in the thick of it.
Iowa could
Purdue's going to be decent. Iowa could be really good. But
I'm excited to see what Purdue does with Walters, the defensive coordinator from Illinois, as their head coach next season, because we look at Purdue as this offensive air raid, attack, and then obviously Brom, he goes to Louisville, so now maybe I don't know if they're gonna have a new identity or if they're gonna be the same. They got a lot of guys leaving. It's gonna be very interesting there.
Aiden O'Connell's gone, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Charlie Jones is leaving too, if I'm not mistaken. Though
that'll be an interesting one. Another transfer I'm going to highlight is, well, might as well stay in the Big Ten West, is Jeff Sims coming from Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I was going to say that one. Dang, bro.
Yeah, ton of experience. I mean, 3-year starter for the Yellow Jackets.
He was really good at the beginning of the year. Like, if
he was solid, yeah. I mean, for a bad Georgia Tech team.
Yeah, Georgia Tech. I mean, it's really hard for them to get recruits, and I know Haynes King, the former Texas A&M quarterback that ended up getting benched this year, he was a starter. Or he's now going to Georgia Tech with their new head coach. It's Brent Key that's their current head coach. Jeff Collins was the former one. Anyways, but yeah, continue to say what you want about Jeff Sims.
Yeah, a lot of experience. He's bringing that. Obviously, we're going to have to see what Nebraska does with Matt Rule. Hopefully it's not as big of a dumpster fire as Carolina was this year.
Right.
So I'm interested to see how that system works, and I think Jeff Sims, I think a lot of times when you get a new coach, especially a coach that's not coming from college football, he's coming from the NFL, to give him a guy who has as much experience as Jeff Sims does, 3 years of three-year starter in a Power 5 program it's hard to come by in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to get a Sam Hartman, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a big get for Nebraska.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched Jeff Sims play. I mean, he's got a decent arm. He's pretty athletic as well. And, I think he's better than Casey Thompson was. Like, Casey Thompson was pretty decent at Texas, but Jeff Sims, I mean, he was able to make this Georgia Tech team look really good at times, when he was playing. And I just think he has the potential to do big things at Nebraska and really get a jump start on their program, hopefully, with Matt Rule as the head coach.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how those two Big Ten West programs end up picking it up because, obviously in 2 years it'll be a little more balanced out with UCLA and Oregon coming in. But at least for next year, is anyone going to step up and beat the Big Ten East? Because the Big Ten East has been ridiculous the last few years, and the West has just not kept up.
Yeah, and Tuck coming next year, just by the way, to let everyone know, like, Michigan State was a 5-17 this last year. TCU in 2021. season was 5-7. They ended up making a national championship. So expect the same thing from the Spartans. Just FYI. Yeah. I'm gonna put a spotlight on a receiver. He's currently ranked as the number one receiver on 24/7 Sports, which is what I got pulled up on my screen right now. But Dominic Lovett from he's committed to Georgia. Obviously, I mean, there's the number 3 receiver in this transfer class, Ra Thomas, also committed to Georgia. But Dominic Lovett, he's this tall, lengthy kid who actually he had a couple big catches against Georgia. Anyways, but this kid he is so just dominant in receiving, and he just reminds me of he's just looks like this SEC guy. He's gonna be really good on the perimeter next year. He's gonna be like Arian Smith basically, except he's more I think he's a better overall player than Arian Smith. So it's gonna be interesting. I think he's got like that Marvin Harrison type of receiving style, and when you look at receivers right now, you have your, if we're looking at NFL guys, you have your Julio Jones, you have your Megatrons. I'm just bringing up guys from the past. You have your your Adam Thielens. You have finesse receivers, and then you have the dominant receivers, and you have deep threats. There's a type of different receivers, and Dominic Lovett reminds me of Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of just the intangibles, and then obviously the skill set. So I don't know what you know about him, but I was just watching before leaving Florida. I was trying to watch a lot of these prospects, these transfer portal guys before I left. So when I came back, I knew a few guys I wanted to talk about in my head. And he's special, man. I think he could do big things next year. So we'll obviously have to wait and see, but he can't just go in the national championship game.
He's into a really good system too. Which
Yeah.
I think that's really big for kids like that. Kirby Smart, kind of like Nick Saban, kind of like Urban Meyer was, really good at maximizing the talent that they have and using his weapons, even though, say what you want about Stetson Bennett. I don't think the quarterback play that he gives is anything elite, but it seems like
it wins football games.
Who the quarterback is. Yeah, and he's able to maximize his receivers and let them be really good too. So he's heading to a good system. Stetson is gone after this year, so watching that quarterback situation kind of play out will be interesting. But honestly, no matter who's under center, I think he's in for a big year because the system, and it's proven to work with these receivers. So
yeah. All right. Who's your next guy? We'll give you'll go, I'll go, and then we'll do it again. Yeah, because you went first, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so you'll go one more time, I'll go one more time, and then we'll do it. So we got 2 each. Okay.
All right, sounds good. I'm sticking on quarterback, so I might as well just stick here. Jack Plummer going from Cal to Louisville.
Okay, yeah. I was talking to someone before this, and I said, "Holy crap, Jack Plummer's going to Louisville. That's a huge win. I mean, he was really good at Cal, so
I think he could put up really big numbers at Louisville. He's replacing. It was Brennan Armstrong, wasn't it?
No, Brennan Armstrong was at Virginia. He's going to. He's replacing Malik Cunningham.
Yes, Malik Cunningham. I'm sorry, I could picture the guy in my head.
I mean, both underwhelming ACC teams with really talented quarterbacks.
Yes. Okay, all right. I just had the names messed up. I knew who I was talking about. I promise, podcast, I'm not stupid. But Jack Plummer heading to Louisville. I think it kind of gives Louisville a more solidified quarterback. Obviously, Malik Cunningham was good. I think he had his own issues. But I think you get a much more accurate passer in Jack Plummer. You get someone that has that experience. Over 3,000 yards, over 20 touchdowns this year, 62% completion percentage for a, quite frankly, bad Cal team. I expect him to go to Louisville and make some noise. I think it just kind of gives them it stabilizes their quarterback situation a little bit. You get someone that's a pure pocket passer, and I think he's going to be really good at Louisville.
If you watch the USC game, Jack Plummer played crazy, put up good numbers. He made really good throws. Cal is just a really bad football team, and he was able to capitalize on the best of his abilities and putting up numbers for Cal this year. And I think he could be really successful. Jeff Brom did a really good job with Aiden O'Connell, who might not be the most talented. I mean, he was a walk-on, but he was able to make him really good even this past season. So if Louisville, they get decent recruits. So they're going to be able to get weapons. hit the transfer portal. So it can make Jack Plummer look really good, and he might be one of those sneaky guys where like, hey, he could be in Heisman conversations in like week 6 through week 8 before Louisville probably starts underperforming at the end of the season and losing big games. But I mean, he's still a really good quarterback regardless, and I mean he's got a bigger opportunity to play good at Louisville under a new head coach.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go on the defensive side here. Deshaun McCulloch, highest rated transfer on the defensive line. Pretty young guy. Was from Indiana. Now he's going to Oklahoma. And he doesn't have any college tape, but I was watching his high school film before this. This guy, he was a safety outside linebacker, basically, kind of like that flex guy where like he's just kind of playing on the edge. They have him listed as an edge rusher, but really he could play anywhere at linebacker if they have him go, more up on the line like a stand up or something like that. Like he was playing a little bit in coverage, but I mean he was basically used as like a blitzing, get pressure off the edge because of his speed, and he's also a really good physical player for his size. And I mean, he played a little bit of offense in high school too, obviously, because I mean, if you're just that good and you're not at like Bishop Gorman or Mater Dei or St. John Bosco, and they don't need you to play on both sides, then you're probably playing on both sides. But this kid, he's really good. He's really fast off the edge. He has great instincts. Like this kid's going to be a good playmaker at Oklahoma, which hopefully Brent Venables can get this team back to a little bit more success. Obviously the 6-6 year. Do you know if they won their bowl game or not?
I know not. I can look.
All right. I mean, obviously new head coach after a ton of guys leaving and decommitting, because Lincoln Riley was a really good head coach in terms of getting the best out of his players and getting recruits, just not winning in the college football playoff semifinal. But yeah, I think this guy could be really good and maybe jumpstart the defensive line at Oklahoma and have something to be excited about going into next year.
Oklahoma lost to the 13th ranked Seminoles by 3.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Because Jordan Travis had like over 400 yards. Okay, now I remember.
Yep.
All right. So you give one more guy.
Oh, I got to pick one more. This is going to be tough. Want to give a quick shout out here. We don't have to talk about him much, but Keegan Johnson, Iowa receiver. I'm so glad he's finally getting out of there. That kid is so good. And
I like Bruce Arlen. That kid that's leaving. He is also another guy. Bruce. I think his name's Bruce Arlen, the fourth.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Arlen Bruce, Johnson. Not Bruce. Okay, so I had his name backwards. Anyways.
I mean, former top 20 recruit Keegan Johnson finally getting out of there. I think that's big. But I don't know if we end up talking about it, but the two I'll highlight is Eric All and Cade McNamara heading to Iowa. I think that's really big for the Big Ten West. Big Ten West, I think, is in for a big shakeup. They have a ton of, up and down the entire board, a ton of transfers coming in.
Yeah,
Hudson Card coming into Purdue too.
Coaching changes too. Like there's what?
Yes,
4: Wisconsin, Nebraska, Purdue, and Illinois. Or no, Illinois is still keeping Brett Bielema, but they're gonna obviously have a defensive coordinator change, but still, that's crazy. Wow, I didn't even realize how much shakeup that's going on. Wow.
Yeah, and with almost every school out there having a new quarterback coming in next year too, it'll be interesting. Cade McNamara, I think, gives a level of. Obviously, Cade McNamara is probably the best quarterback Iowa's seen in a very long time. He kind of
better whoever they put out there yesterday. So.
Oh yeah, it doesn't even matter. And then Hudson Card too, heading to Purdue.
Yeah,
that's another quarterback. Lost the competition to Quinn Ewers. There's absolutely nothing to be ashamed about there. That's a tough competition to win. So I know we've talked a lot about the Big Ten West, but I'm actually really excited to watch this.
It could be really interesting.
Play.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a lot of new, and you don't know what's going to happen. But I think it's really good for the Big Ten because ultimately, when you're bringing in programs like UCLA and Oregon, who are both top 20 programs all season long, the Big Ten is going to get even harder when you have Michigan, Ohio State already powerhouses, Penn State and Michigan State that I think are right there too. Big Ten West had to keep up. And ultimately, I know the SEC hype, but mind you, going into that Bama game, the SEC was 0-7 in those bowl games. And I honestly, legitimately think the Big Ten could surpass the SEC as the conference to beat.
No,
We're
no,
going to
no,
see,
no, 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 no. The
but
Big 12 is the best conference in the land. I'm sorry to break it to
oh
you.
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know. They're not the best, but they're definitely the most competitive and definitely
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
and I think going back to the TCU game, I think that's why they were so prepared because they played in so many tough games. Whereas like, hey,
Hmm.
we're not new to this. Like the I hate SEC and Big Ten conference just because there's such a significant drop off in the teams that are in it in terms of quality and stuff. And like the Big 12, like obviously they're not the Bama's, the Georgias, Ohio States, blah 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 blah, but they're still good football teams that can play given the right circumstances and the right talent put in place, they can compete for a national championship. I mean, we've seen Oklahoma and multiple times in the college football playoff recently. I mean, TCU got snubbed that first year that the college football playoff was, first in play. So it's just
Yeah,
interesting. I mean, we've seen Baylor be really good over the last couple of years too, as well. Like the Big 12's got talent, man, and people don't
for
realize that.
sure.
And I just think TCU in a game like they were playing against Michigan where they went up early and then started having them chip away at their lead, but they were able to close the game because they've been prepared to do that on multiple occasions, during the season.
Yeah, TCU was definitely playing not only for themselves but for the entire Big 12 because the Big 12 had sent Oklahoma a couple times. The majority of those times ultimately ended up in Oklahoma getting blown out. But I think I think TCU had an opportunity to prove that college football can be more than just the SEC,
In Big
Big Ten,
Ten,
and Clemson, and
yeah.
and they did that. So big shout out to TCU.
I just think
I think they're
TCU had
pulling their weight.
way more playmakers on defense than any Oklahoma team did in the past when they made the college football playoffs. So
Well, yeah, I mean they had more Heisman candidates than they did decent uh, players on defense. So
yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
that's something to say with Oklahoma. The defense is great when they're going up against with the Big 12, and all they need is two stops and you win the football game. But when you go play gritty Big 10 football or SEC football against these big name recruits, it's tough to win. But I'm getting a little off topic here, but I saw something on Twitter yesterday, and it said I think yesterday just proved that elite offense will beat elite defense every
Yeah,
single
I saw
time.
that same thing, and I'm like,
Yes,
yeah, I don't know. It depends. I mean, defense still was a big factor in that game. Don't get it twisted. Literally, TCU scored 2 defensive touchdowns. They don't even score over 40 if that doesn't happen. So, and I mean,
of
obviously,
course.
field position and everything else leading up to turnovers and whatnot. I mean, there were 6 combined turnovers in that game. So it's just there was defense played in that game. It just didn't show in the final score.
Yes, because it is worth mentioning that 92 points were scored in yesterday's games against the top two defenses in the country, in Michigan and Georgia. And I that TCU score is a little bit inflated because JJ McCarthy's 14 of those TCU points, but
Right, but what I'm
still,
saying,
it's
I feel like I mean, obviously the Georgia Ohio State game was a little bit different. I feel like there was way less stops happening than, you know, in the TCU Michigan game, and that just led to scores quickly, or that obviously the 2 pick sixes. But you know,
yeah. There was one point in the Michigan TCU game. If I go back, I'm trying to see if I can pull it up. I can. There was a stretch in that second half where if you just count the number of plays, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was 5, 4, 6, 10, and then all of a sudden they flipped, and it was like 5, 4, 2, 3, and like it was just super, super, just quick, short plays or drives for both teams, and
yeah,
um, it seemed to be every single drive either was points or a turnover. So obviously defense matters for big time stops, but I think you're more seeing, especially in the college game, timely turnovers are much, much more important than getting actual consistent stops. And that's how
right,
teams are winning
yeah.
football games.
I mean, yeah, I mean we see it all the time. Just turnovers and stuff. Turnovers, they change games, man. Like,
100%. I mean,
yeah,
you can look at the Detroit Lions if you go to the NFL, and it's a bottom 3 ranked defense in the
But they
NFL, but they're able to
would
get
get their
sacks and
turnover.
turnovers
Yeah.
really timely.
Yeah.
And it get and sometimes it's better to be good on one play than good on 3 in a row. So
Yep.
sometimes it just takes that to get you off the field. And I think college more specifically than the NFL, but that's just kind of the landscape of it. Elite offenses just continue to dominate, which is why really for the transfer portal, especially these quarterbacks being on the move, being able to get experience and guys that can throw the pigskin around is big.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just name off the quarterbacks in the portal that you didn't name already that I think could be really good. Obviously, Sam Hartman probably going to Notre Dame, gonna probably potentially take Ty Buckner's spot. It'll be really big for Marcus Freeman. Going to be really experienced quarterback that he's played in big games, and Wake Forest has been pretty solid the last 2 years, and I think Notre Dame probably gets better recruits than Wake Forest, and we'll see what he's able to do in that offense. Sucks that Grayson McCall pulled out of the portal. I saw that earlier today on my way home, and I'm like, man, dude, this guy could be so good in a Power 5 offense given the right tools and a good scheme fit. Like, it just sucks, but I mean, people thought he was going to go to Liberty and follow Jimmy Chadwell. His coach at Coastal that ended up taking the job for Hugh Freeze, but he's staying at Coastal now. And then one more guy, Spencer Sanders, still looking for a home, man. I think this guy could be a big playmaker wherever he goes. Oklahoma State was really successful early on in the season, and that was because of this guy with his ability to make plays outside the pocket with his legs or throwing it downfield. But I mean, Oklahoma State terrible second half of the season, but it wasn't because of this kid. This kid was really good, and I think he could be very successful wherever he goes, whether it's somewhere on the East Coast or if he stays relatively in the Plains, basically Tornado Alley. I don't know where he's projected to go, so it should be interesting though. I think he's a really good player, and Oklahoma State was really exciting at the beginning of the season, so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think.
God,
I mean,
he was
obviously,
he was class of 2018. I think he's only got 1 year of eligibility left, if I'm not mistaken.
Spencer Sanders.
Yeah,
That sounds right. I mean, he should have. He was class of 18. Did he redshirt at 19? I think he did.
I think he did because.
So if he redshirted in 19, then he should have his COVID eligibility too. So he might have 2 years left.
Okay. Oh yeah, maybe. Well, it doesn't say
2021, 22.
It doesn't say that he redshirted. Yeah, well, who cares?
Maybe he didn't. It's either one or two.
Is there an article to see where he goes?
Yeah, Spencer Sanders, I mean, he was terrific last year. I remember watching that Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State and Baylor, and Spencer Sanders was unreal.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good player, and I think I don't know. I just think he would have a huge impact wherever he went. Like, people are talking about all these other, this is a guy that's like not so much on everyone's radar compared to someone like, Devin Leary or Brennan Armstrong or, someone of that nature, but he's still a really good football player. And I think he's got the capability of doing really big things.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's the coolest thing about college football the way it is. I know a lot of people hate the portal. A lot of old heads still believe in, wait out, be patient. But that's not how college football is. And I think getting these guys that have the ability to turn programs around, make college football more competitive. And you saw it with TCU. All of a sudden, the TCU team that was 5-7 is able to compete for a national title on Monday. And that's what college football wants, especially expanding to 12 teams. It opens up opportunity for more teams where you don't have to play at Alabama to have a chance to win a national title. So, I know maybe college football didn't want the portal to be the way it is, but honestly, I think it's the best thing possible for the sport.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, honestly, we're heading into a better... People are always so negative. I mean, people are just always so negative nowadays anyways when it comes to change in some sort of landscape, whether it's the NFL adding more playoff teams or the NBA doing a play-in tournament or something like that. Like, people are always looking at it in the negative aspect. It just provides more opportunity for teams and everyone to succeed. And at the end of the day, if we're having competitive games and people inside the sport are super happy, then and if it provides, the sport being super like good in terms of ratings and, watch a bit like able to watch, like I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think the transfer portal and NIL deals lead to what we saw yesterday in more competitive games. Because you're not getting these guys that are crazy good because kids don't have to go to Georgia and they're stuck at Georgia, so they're just running a bunch of seniors onto the field. They're forced to be a little bit younger, a little bit different with how they get things, and because these kids don't have to just sit and wait their turn patiently, they can leave and go to better opportunities, get more playing time as
You
younger
know who
kids.
broke that all open?
Who?
The number one kid in the portal, or not in the portal anymore because he's committed to Colorado. But Travis Hunter, man, that influence is crazy on what he did. Like he
Oh
made
my
it.
God, yeah.
Yeah, like looking back on it, man, there's so many kids that would rather go other places just for the opportunity to be as successful as possible. While, yeah, I mean, obviously you're with a coach that you really like, and then, but also doing it for they're not just going to the big school just because they can only win a championship there. Like it's going to be more possible to win championships at other schools rather than Bama, Georgia, Ohio State winning it in winning it in that cycle at Clemson, those teams. So,
Yeah.
one,
You want to see different teams have a shot to knock off these top teams, and I think making teams like Alabama play more than 2 games to win a national title is just going to give them more opportunity to lose.
right.
More teams that can win, and the more teams that have a possibility to win, the more college football evens out. So,
And the more content I can talk about.
yes, it's refreshing not having to talk about the same 3
Right.
teams for an entire season.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I can't wait for the college football. I can't wait for, the Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson to all be in the college football playoff because it's going to be so fun to talk about. Like, it's nice. And it's really good.
Yeah,
I think, and I mean, in terms of, like, covering stuff, like, there's going to be more teams to cover, too. Like, in terms of just job opportunities, for people. Like, you're going to get paid more for being able to cover a team like TCU or, potentially a team like Oregon State. Like there's going to be more reasons to cover them and they'll get more national coverage just because, I mean, more parity, more everything. So it works out for everyone in the end. I just don't understand why people are so negative about it, but people are scared to see change. So that's just that. I wanted to bring this to your attention. So did you know about how Michigan lost to Central Michigan a couple days ago?
yes, for college basketball.
Yeah, and
I did see that.
then today they beat
They hammered Maryland.
that's just so crazy, dude. Like basketball is like we're gonna talk about. We'll get into basketball mode after the national championship's over and transfer portal stuff's basically wrapped up. Like we're gonna be moving college basketball, Big Ten, March Madness talk, top teams around the country. So obviously we were both Spartans fans, and Willie Call made his return Friday night against Buffalo off the bench, sadly. But
Looked really good.
yeah, I don't know, man. That's just crazy to think like Michigan can lose to a team where a kid from Last Chance U. I don't know if did you watch season 2 of that documentary yet?
I did not.
Honestly, I don't know if it's better than season 1, but it's definitely way different in terms of like the personalities on the team and stuff. I give it a watch.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. College basketball is like one of the best. Like I haven't really honestly been too much paying attention just because I've been focusing so much time on watching college football, studying up on these teams, transfer portals, head coaching changes, etc. Where I haven't gotten to college basketball yet, and typically I'm in there because I'm not Michigan State. If they're not good, I normally don't pay attention. But now that I'm covering more or paying attention more than just Michigan State and covering like the field of good teams. I haven't gotten to basketball yet. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for the podcast. Thank you for watching. We'll have more episodes throughout the week before we go back to school, and then we'll have our national championship preview over the weekend. Thank you for watching.